and this session will be Pathways Support. Is Lisa Persels. She has been a member of Toastmasters for 23 years. As a member of district leadership, she has proven to be a valuable wealth of knowledge when it comes to the Toastmasters education program, not only providing a workshop on the topic of pathways to the district executive team, but also being a member of the education team for the first ever Pathways Summit earlier this year. One of Eastern Iowa's most experienced Pathways gurus and current director for Area 81. Please welcome Lisa Persels.
Thank you, Carrie, and welcome everyone, Toastmasters, all of you. See your shiny, smiley faces and names in some cases. We have a really amazing, intimate group of people here, and I would love to make sure that all of your questions get answered. So what I'd like to do today is just make this super interactive. As Carrie mentioned, feel free to use and abuse that chat window. If my presenter mode is on, Carrie's going to keep an eye on that and let me know if somebody has a question. So this is your chance. Let's just get it all out there. And as we work through this, if you have a really great tip that you've run into from going through Pathways, feel free to put that in the chat window too. I would love to hear it. I have my own way of looking at Pathways, and I know as creative as all of you are, I'm sure you've discovered some interesting things too. So feel free to pour on the interesting details for Pathways from everyone. All right, I am going to, Carrie, did you switch me to share mode?
And sorry about that. I'm going to have Matthew, are you still on as Huddle Toastmasters as the host? If not, I can send him a quick chat because I am not the host either.
Okay, so sounds great.
Sorry, I will get that done for you as soon as I can.
Sure, no problem. In the meantime, while we're waiting, if you want to go ahead and just type in that chat window a question I have for everyone. How experienced at Pathways are you? Have you just started? Are you a new member? Are you an experienced member, but you just have been kind of a little bit on the intrepid side about Pathways? I would love to make sure that I'm setting up the meeting to hit everybody. Tiffany, all right. So you're newbie. I'll make sure to try to slow down. Feel free to let me know if I'm using too many acronyms or if you want me to slow down, or I have ability to get into the website right now and I have a prepared speech. The prepared speech is really just for to make sure that we're on the same page as far as terminology is concerned, but we can take this wherever we need to go with it. And Barry's saying he has some experience, that's good. All right, and Heather, I started in a brand new corporate group. Excellent, welcome Heather. And Pearl is experienced on the traditional path, but new to Pathways. So I'll try, Pearl, to try to give you some equivalencies on that so that we don't lose you in Pathways, but feel free in the chat to let me know if you want me to talk a little bit more about the traditional path. And Orville has some experience too. Amazing. And Bill, Bill's new to Toastmasters, and I know you've plunged into doing speeches for Pathways, so we'll get you a little bit better on the actual website itself. Thanks for responding to my question, everyone.
Hey there, Lisa.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. You have sharing capabilities now. I apologize for that.
Got it. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right. Let's just go right into the session here. All right. So what I mentioned before is I do have some prepared slides, and I did submit the PDF so you can take a look at that as well. But we're just going to talk through some terminology first. And I have quick access to the, make sure I've got this sharing set up right so we can see everything on my computer. And I do have, as you can see, I have quick access to the internet too. So we'll take you through all of it with the guided tour of base camp. And then finally, I do have some tips and tricks to offer in case we have some gaps and questions that we want to talk through together. I did notice that there is a 15-minute gap between this session and the next session. So if any of your questions are specifically for your situation or your computer, you and I right now have shared Zoom, and feel free to let me know if you have specific questions after the session's over. And I'm free here for at least another hour to answer any questions you have. We'll make sure that you're very comfortable with Pathway or you're inspired to get in there and try it based upon this session. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is find out what your expectations are of this session. So I'm going to click share for a whiteboard here. And if you've ever had used a whiteboard in the past, along the left upper margin of your computer screen for Zoom, you'll see a draw down button for whiteboard, and you'll see the ability to click text, or you can draw it if you want. But feel free to jot down what you wanted to get out of this session. And perhaps it's just that you want to hear what everybody else's questions are because you're not sure what you have for questions. That's okay to say too. If the whiteboard is not something you're interested in, feel free to put it in the chat too, and Carrie will keep an eye out for that for me.
Everyone, if you're not used to using the whiteboard, you might need to go up to the top, click on View Options, and Annotate. You can type in text, draw, stamp, do all sorts of things, and make sure once you've typed something, you have to click off of your text box in order for it to show up.
Excellent. I see basic understanding and some information about evaluations. Where to find stuff. That's some basic information, isn't it? Excellent question. You spoiled my thunder. I was going to so excitedly talk about that at the end. We'll get to that. I actually took advantage of that within minutes after I saw that email. And I'll talk to you about why that's really important for you to do that. You want to get some more information about how to help others understand it. Good one. All right, any last ones? I'm gonna hit save. We'll check back on this one towards the end and make sure that we've covered all your questions. Hit save now. Did we get any further chats, Carrie?
Nope, I don't have anything else in the chat box.
Okay.
Oh, here's a big one.
Oh yeah, wanted to know how VP of Education is introducing pathways to a new member. Any special method they are supposed to follow? I use a YouTube link to show how the assessment will be done. I just wondered if there is standard methods that ADs should use with presidents. Good question. That might be a really good one to brainstorm on too, to see what everyone has been doing. Perhaps that's something that we just need to talk through together, maybe even at a deck meeting for the area directors on what the best way is to do that. how to move the process through from speech to completion. Another great question. You know, because I took advantage of the free path, I have a free and open path for us to play with today, just to see the whole thing from beginning to the end. So we'll do that today too. I'll make sure to take care of that. So let me hit save here. And get rid of the first two. And we'll come back to that. Thanks again for taking the time to do that. And stop share, and we will go back to the session. Okay. So what is Pathways? For all the newbies and the people that haven't really ventured into Pathways too much, the essence of who we are as Toastmasters is to educate ourselves and those in our club. And Pathways is the method to do that. Pathways is accessible in Toastmasters.org. That's this website. If you haven't been there because you're real new, this is definitely a place that you want to check back to frequently, because it has a lot of great information there. It'll inspire you. There's a lot of good videos there to inspire you to keep working on your goals. But Pathways is simply just a menu option off of that Toastmasters.org. So that's as easy as it gets. And you can even go to Basecamp, and if you're into favorite links, you can click on that as a favorite link too. It'll ask you to log in first, but then you'll see the screen next. So that's how you get into Pathways. Pathways is a program that has tracks that you go into, similar to if you're familiar with conferences like we have today. You have 3 different tracks where the sessions concentrate on a specific kind of topic. So does the Pathways session. What it does is it allows you to really dig deep into a type of communication or leadership skill set. And each of the criteria and the content within that specialized learning path helps you to get there with content and videos, and then actually putting your boots on and getting to a club and doing a speech about that information that you just learned. It's the best way to learn something, is to read, study, and then actually put it into practice. And that's what Toastmasters is all about, and that's what's so exciting about it. We'll get into a little bit more in another slide about the actual paths and the paper-based form ideas as well. But that's what Pathways, the education program, is all about at a high level. Now, when you go into your Pathways link, you're going to click on Basecamp, and this is kind of
Lisa?
your home. Yeah.
Hey, Lisa, we're not seeing your screen anymore.
Let me hit share again. Thanks for letting me know.
Yeah, that's the bad thing about being a presenter. You can't see what we see.
Yeah. Okay. Here we go. Is this better?
There you are. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay. So here we go. Again, this is the education program that I was just talking about. That's 11 specialized paths. Now, I want to know, can you see my internet link right now?
I only see the screen with your presentation right now.
Okay, let me see if I can share it, or I can see the whole desktop.
Yeah, Lisa, you could usually either share a screen or share like a whole screen, or share a window. So you might be just sharing a window.
Yeah. Let me just do it this way, just to get us, I don't want to delay the session. Okay, so this is the education program, and then Basecamp is the module that you go into from Pathways, and it has the place where you work on your projects. And projects, projects is the term they use in Pathways, but if you're used to our traditional program, project is really just another name for speech. because ultimately any project that you run into in Pathways leads to a speech in your club. It's the way that you actually practice what you've learned. So Basecamp has all of your projects in it, and then you can track your progress there too. There's check marks. We'll go into that in a little bit too. And then there's also tutorials and videos. Yeah.
Hey, Lisa, I'm seeing your just the file explorer page now.
Okay. Sorry about that.
Some of the excitement of having online only.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay, now I see your presentation.
Sorry. Okay. Again, Basecamp is all about the module with your projects, you track your progress, and your tutorials and videos. And from the website, toastmasters.org, you're going to click on Pathways as a link, and then click on Go to Basecamp, and that's where you're going to find Basecamp. And then finally, the other term that I want to make sure that we talk about, because it's so essential in Toastmasters, is your evaluation. In Pathways, there's a whole section in Basecamp for evaluation resources because it is so important. In that area of Pathways, you're going to find guidance for delivering your speech and evaluations, and you're going to have available the tutorial and resources available to work on an evaluation for a member. So you have everything you need there. When a fellow member is working on a speech, I'm going to talk about the fact that when you're working on a speech, one of the things you should get used to doing is printing out your evaluation or sending an electronic version to your evaluator. In some situations, sometimes more often than not, someone will impromptu speak at your club meeting. And so having an electronic version available when you're on your online meeting is a really great advantage to have for your club, because you can pull up anybody's evaluation form and start filling it out for them as an evaluator. So that's just a tip I have. So those are the three parts of Pathways. You've got your educational program, you've got Basecamp, which is the module where you work from for all your speeches, and then you have your evaluation resources. Okay, so those 11 digital learning paths that I mentioned, here is a list of those. So like I mentioned before, when I referred to this as a way to, our conference, for example, how we have a track for each type of topic, here's your topic tracks within Pathways. So you could choose to get into dynamic leadership. My path that I first signed up for was leadership development. So each of the assignments, the projects and speeches all have to do with leadership development. And another thing that I picked was motivational strategies, because I really like to make sure that when I start a project that I can explain it in a way to get people excited about doing it. So motivational strategies was a good fit. And then finally, my freebie that I just signed up for last night is engaging humor. That's the one that I signed up for, and I'm excited about trying. So I'm going to call on a couple people. If you don't mind just clicking unmute when I call your name, let me know if you've had a chance to pick one of these paths, and let me know just a quick 30-second thing about the path that you like or that you want to hear more about. So I'm going to call on Orville. If you can unmute and let us know.
Oh, hi. Good morning again, and good morning, everyone. Is your question, have I chosen a path in Pathways and what it is?
Yes, exactly.
Yes, actually, I have. I've chosen dynamic leadership. Sorry, I know it's leadership.
Yeah,
Right?
it's dynamic.
Because I've chosen two paths, innovative planning and dynamic leadership. But I'm actually working actively on dynamic leadership.
Great. Awesome. Thanks for contributing, Orville. Another nice thing about having more than one path open at the same time is that you can customize your speeches for your club based upon which path that you're working on. And we'll kind of get into more details about that when I show my actual website. Does anybody have any questions about the learning path? Okay, so once you click on a path, each of those 11 topic paths that I just mentioned have 5 levels to them. And this is just a little high level idea of what these 5 levels are about. The first one is the same in all of those 11. That is mastering fundamentals of speaking in a club. So your projects and speeches will work on the basics. And I know that was one thing that I've had for questions from people that have been in the traditional program. When you go into Pathways, it is asking you to start over again. But what it does is it kind of helps you to see through things with a new eye with an online program. So I challenge you, if that's something that you're struggling with, to just jump in there and give it a try. It gave me new energy, and it helped me to refine my speeches based upon going back through all the fundamentals again. And another neat thing about doing level 1 as someone that's an experienced Toastmaster is that you get a better idea of what your new members go through as well, because you're following the same steps they are to go through the levels in a path. Carrie, is there any chat questions for me on this one?
Just something that you'll probably get to when we're doing the live demo.
Okay. Another thing too that I mentioned in this graphic is the number of projects or speeches in each level. So if you count them up, I believe I've got 15. You can do the math. The mentoring program in the right side is an optional program, and it's not a requisite to get to the higher levels of your speech, your Toastmaster levels. But that gives you an idea of how long it'll take to get through the different levels. In the traditional program, our first communication manual took 10 speeches. So you can see, if you look at the numbers here, you get to travel through these levels at a much higher rate. After the first 2 levels, 3, 4, and 5 do have more research and more reading and activity bot to do the speeches, but there's still less speeches that you have to take care of. All right, let's move on to the next one. Okay, so from those 3 graphics, Navigator is a really excellent place to go. As a new member, the new members only get an email now. They don't get a packet in the mail, and the email directs them to the Navigator for all of their information. So if you are in charge of instructing your new members about how to get into Pathways, my first advice to you would be to really study the Navigator and see what Toastmasters is pointing them to, and then find out what kind of things that would be helpful for you and your club to supplement that information. We're going to go into what it looks like, but I just want to give you some basic information about that. So as a new member, again, this is the launching point for you, and you're going to find links and content that are going to be essential for you to really get yourself feeling comfortable in the club, along with having a mentor to walk you through that. And as experienced members, if you take a look at the Navigator, this will give you some insight into what your new member is seeing. And it also is a nice way, if you use that link instead of downloading a PDF of the Navigator, it's a great way to stay on top of what's changing in Toastmasters, because that on the Toastmasters.org website, that Navigator gets updated as changes happen. So as an experienced member, I would definitely recommend that you use links to Navigator instead of producing like some paper copy that you hand out in your club meetings. Any questions about Navigator?
Yeah, hi Lisa, I have a question.
Okay.
So is the navigator where anybody can access that, or is it just like the VP of Education, and is it the navigator when you're looking at it, is it for your own learning or for others in your group?
Great question. Anyone can access Navigator. It's one of the main parts of the website. And I would say that it is definitely a launching point for a new person. But for someone that's experienced, it's good to know that that's a resource to point your new members to. There's also parts to Navigator that if you think back as an experienced member, you've probably just started your Toastmaster experience just getting used to taking a role in the meeting and then getting ready for that first speech. So you're kind of taking Toastmasters at small chunks as you go. And the Navigator is a good place that shows you all of the different facets. It gives you a little idea of what contests are like. It talks about opportunities you have to serve as club officers and district officers as well. So it's kind of something that you can go back to and re-inspire yourself anytime you want as an experienced member. But I think it's the best place to go to for a new member, just to give you a full idea of how big Toastmasters is. Toastmasters can be small and just focused on your club, or you can extend it and really challenge yourself to go outside of the club experience. Did that help with that question?
Yes, thank you.
Anything else? Okay, I'm going to stop sharing this session for a minute, and I'm going to go into the website, and let's take a quick look at some of the things that we had just been talking about. So again, Toastmasters.org is where I'm at, and I clicked on Pathways, and then I went to go to Basecamp.
I'm not seeing it yet,
Okay.
Lisa. It might just be lagging. There it is.
Okay, thank you, Carrie. All right, Toastmasters.org, Pathways, go to Basecamp. And here is my Basecamp. So what I mentioned before, you've got your path selection, that's those 11 items that I mentioned. You have your Basecamp itself, and you have a navigator. So since we just were talking about navigator, let's launch the navigator. And again, I am not logging in as a special director or anything. I'm just logging in as a regular member of a club. And this is what you will see when you log in as a regular member of a club. So I'm going to click launch the navigator. And you are going to see a site that shows you the navigator information. There is a couple of different ways of looking at this. The navigator PDF is down here, and you could look at that as a static item, or the navigator is a larger document and it's broken out into tabs per se in this screen. So if you click on Welcome to Toastmasters as an example, it's going to give you a place where you can find out just the basics about how to improve my public speaking skills. Gives you a little introduction to that. There's some nice videos from our executive level people at Toastmasters to give you more ideas about what to do with Toastmasters. And then there's more information here about body language and some inspirational testimonies. So this is the nice thing about using Navigator online, is you can get into the videos, and those are kind of a fun way of looking at it. So Toastmaster Club, I'm not going to go into each of those categories, but it shows you what happens during the meeting, how can I participate in a club meeting, and who leads my club. Oh, Tiffany, do you mind I'm curious to see, have you had a chance to look in Navigator?
Hi, Lisa. Can you hear me okay?
I can.
Yeah, so you were breaking up there. I didn't quite get the question that you asked.
Sure. I'm showing the navigator slide section of Toastmasters.org, and I was just curious about whether or not you've had a chance to click on that yet.
Right, yeah. I've had a chance to explore a little bit the navigator, but not much.
Okay. Okay. So this is, I think, a helpful place just to get your feet on the ground with the club and find out more about what happens during the meeting and how you can participate. And then who are the club members that are officers in your club? Who can you go to for questions? That's just another section of Navigator. There's information on speeches and evaluations and pathways learning experience, and expanding your journey kind of gets into contests and district officer opportunities, that kind of thing. So does anybody have any questions about Navigator? I'm going to go back into Basecamp. And I mentioned that there are resources available to see how the different paths are set up. And if you click on path selection here as a new member, or as someone that's experienced and you want to add a path to your Basecamp, this is where you do it. You go under select a path. And incidentally, for anyone that was a renewal member, if you got, you do have access to add a free path. And literally all you have to do is go into select your preferences like this again. And when you click the select one, you'll see that it comes up as 0 payment. So you don't have to put in any special codes or anything. It's super easy to do it. So English, and then digital. And you can either take an assessment, and it kind of helps you to decide which of those 11 areas you want to get into, like leadership development versus mastering presentation versus motivational strategy. Or you can take a look at them on your own by clicking on view path option and continue. And this gives you those 11 things that you saw just before with the ellipsis button so that you can take a look at them in more detail. For example, presentation mastery. If you click on the plus sign, you're going to go into viewing all the projects or speeches in this path. So this might be something you remember from that other slide that I showed. It gives the 5 levels, and it tells you what the projects are going to be like. So in that first fundamental, you're going to do an icebreaker. You're going to have a series of evaluation and feedback speeches, and then finally a research and presentation speech. Each of these levels have a little bit of something going on. I do want to say, I think I mentioned this before, but level 1 is the same for every path. And when you finish your first level, you need to do 2 levels to be able to get as part of your Distinguished Toastmaster. That's the highest level of achievement you can get in Toastmasters. So each of these paths that you pick are going to have these 5 levels involved in them. I think some of the more fun things in Toastmasters is looking at these elective projects. There are some fun things here. For example, you can figure out how to increase your sense of humor in your speech. That's I think a really big one to have under your belt. You can do a compelling blog. You can create a podcast. These are just a lot of fun elective projects you can work on. To get your achievement, it'll say whether you need to choose 2 or 1 in each of these levels, but you're welcome to do as many of these as you want. If you feel that you need to strengthen your skill set for communicating or leadership, by doing more of these electives, feel free to do that. That's all part of Toastmasters flexibility. Does anybody have any questions about this?
This is Connie. I just posted a question in chat, but I'll just ask you.
Okay.
If the beginning path is the same in each of the different pathways, can you count it in more than one path?
Good question. Each level is a distinct of itself from the other levels. So even though level 1 is the same in each one, you do level 1 each time. And I actually like that part of it. I'm an experienced person. I've been in Toastmasters for 23 years. And I really enjoy having that extra level 1 in my extra paths, because sometimes our club meetings need to have fill-in speeches, and an icebreaker is a great way. You can take that icebreaker speech in a lot of different ways. It could be educational, 5 to 7 minutes, if your club needs to have some helpful, inspiring, goal-setting kind of speeches, or you could take it funny or serious, or if you haven't done an icebreaker for a long time, you probably have new members that don't know you very well. So it's just a fun way to introduce yourself back into the club setting again, doing yet another level 1. Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, Lisa, so in other words, yes, you do have to do an icebreaker for every path.
You do.
I've had that question before from experienced Toastmasters, and you really need to look at it as a learning experience. Please don't drag up your old speech and give it again. Think about something new that you could tell about yourself to let your club learn a little bit more about yourself and make it a really learning experience. I've done several icebreakers now over the years, and they're always fun. Don't hesitate to do that.
I agree, Carrie. And I mean, I don't care where you're at in your development process. There's always something you can work on to get better, because people are giving you helpful evaluations every time. So collect all those evaluations. See what it is out there that you need to work on that maybe you've been procrastinating about because you're not a big gesture person. So every time you do a new icebreaker, you can challenge yourself to just focus on the things that you need to work on. So it gives you opportunities to speak in your club and to work on your own personal goals. It's nice because it's not structured as far as having to talk about communication style or leadership style. It's just a open forum for you to work on as an icebreaker. Good questions. Anything else? Okay, I am going to leave the path selection part. Let me go back to my Pathways Basecamp. Okay, so I'm going to walk through what you would go into for Basecamp. And I do have a few places in my Basecamp set up to give some demonstrations for the questions that I saw. So let's click on Basecamp. I am involved in more than one club. So if you want a certain club to get your credit for your speeches, you click on that club when you go in. The club selection does not change what you see in Basecamp. It just affects which club gets credit when you complete levels. So I'm going to click on North Dodge Toastmasters and go to Basecamp.
Lisa, does that also mean which VPE or Basecamp manager can go in and sign off on your projects?
Yes, it does. If you are in, for example, North Dodge, for example, if I finish a level, let's just say level 1 with that icebreaker that we're just talking about, and I say I'm done with that level, then North Dodge Vice President of Education would get the notification that that level is complete so that they can approve it. If my other club is Atumwa, and if I did not log in as Atumwa when I finish that level, Atumwa won't get a notification. Does that help, Carrie?
Yep, thanks.
Did I see another chat come through?
Yeah, Tammy's reminding people to submit completion requests for the levels that you are signed into the club you want to receive credit. Otherwise, it could go to the wrong club. I think that's just what you were chatting about.
Yep, exactly. So I don't know I'm logged in as North Dodge because I went there when I first came in. So I have something ready to go actually. If you for anybody that's new, you're going to just see one path out here because that's what you get when you first come in. But I've purchased the motivational strategies for an extra $20, and it gave me more levels to work on. And I also just signed up for Engaging Humor with that free path. And so I have 3 different places I can go to work on speeches. I'm going to just show you leadership development first. That's my most experienced path. And you're going to see where I can see that I have level 1, level 2, level 3, and level 4 done. I can actually go back and look at them anytime I want. If I wanted to refresh my memory on what I did for these things, I can click on them if I want. I can launch back into them if I want. And I can also see really easily where I left off. So I'm still at level 5 in leadership development. And I did the elective project. It was speaking for professional speech. I did a speech at a professional chapter meeting I'm involved in project management. And I was able to do that. But I'm still looking for the right event to manage with a team. And that's where I get this other project done in level 5. And then I'm going to be finished with level 5. So that's kind of a fun thing. I'm going to go back to my base camp. And this time I'm going to pick motivational strategies because I am ready to say that I'm done with the level, and I'll just walk you guys through what that looks like. So again, motivational strategies, I have level 1 and level 2 done because I have check marks there. And you can see here that I've completed my elective project because it says it's 100% done. I gave my understanding emotional intelligence recently at a club meeting. And so I need to go back in and say I'm done with it. So I'm going to click launch here. So, and this works the same if this is your first speech as an icebreaker in level 1, or I'm in level 3 working on a speech. And I'm at a point in the speech where I just finished giving it in the club. And when I come back into Toastmasters, I need to finish and say that I completed it in my club meeting. So it's coming up with my module. Slower than I want it to be. And then since I've gone through, this is all of your different instructions for that speech. It talks about my topic and how I can get myself prepared to do the speech. But I've finished that speech. That was my review and apply. So I'm going to click on complete your assignment. That's what you need to do when you're done with getting your speech in the club. I'm going to click on complete your assignment. And it asks me to do an assessment. And I've read through the questions already, so I can do it quickly. But Toastmasters is really all about assessing yourself, getting you to really think about where you're at in your development. Because when you go to a club meeting, you're going to find out that there's a lot of different levels of communication and leadership skills. You're going to find people that are nervous to even open their mouth and say anything in front of a group of people, and you're going to find people that have won contests, and seem to be perfectly polished speakers. So I really like how Pathways asks you to assess your own skills. So based upon my ability level, you go through these skills, and it's a great way to kind of check in and see, did I actually learn anything during the speech that I gave? And when you answer these assessment questions at the end, I'm just going to throw in some answers here, and you hit submit, it actually compares what my score was before to what my score was after I gave my speech. That's one thing I really like about it as an experienced Toastmaster, is this kind of interactive ability for you to really do some self-examination. So I'm going to click out of that, and I'm going to move forward. It's going to say, congratulations, you're done with your project. When I close the window, and it's going to check it off as being complete. So now I've completed in my level 3, and again, this works in level 1, level 2, and all these levels. When you're done with your projects, you'll see a check mark, or you'll see 100% for any electives that you had. And you're going to click activate to say that you're done with your level. For me, it's level 3. So I'm going to click activate. And then I need to click launch. And if you look here, these statuses change as each thing is done. So I'm going to click launch. And it actually gives you some steps here too if you need to know just where you're at. I'm going to talk about these statuses, but I'm going to close that. And you can take a look at that on your own. But you're going to see that it says it's in progress now. And I'm going to click mark complete. And it's pending your Vice President of Education approving it. So this is what it looks like to, first of all, to finish a project, to do your speech and get it done. And then when you have all of these speeches done, this is what it looks like to tell your Vice President of Education electronically that you're ready for them to approve the completion of your level 3. Did that help with the question I saw about feeling more comfortable about closing your speech and then getting it ready to report to Vice President of Education?
Yeah, Lisa, I think that's great. I do want to mention for anyone that's on here that is a club officer, during our winter fall officer training, we are going to have a Pathways Base Camp Manager Q&A and show them exactly how to go in there and how to help your members. So that's another thing you can look forward to coming up starting in November.
Yeah. And I did include in that PDF for the session steps for the Vice President of Education to approve that level, both in Pathways and at Toastmasters.org. There's 2 places that you go as a Vice President of Education. So that's a smaller group of people that need to know that. I just want to make sure that everyone's getting, I could show you the clicks on it, but I don't have anybody waiting to be approved for a level right now. Any other questions about when you're done with a speech, how to show that you're done submitting it in Pathways, which I did with emotional intelligence, or how to show that you're ready for someone to approve your level being complete? Okay.
Lisa, does Pathways remember when you completed these projects? Like I know with the old books, the nice thing was you could write down, here's my speech and here was my date I did it. And then when you handed that to the VPE, they could go through and say, oh yeah, I remember these speeches.
I have a feeling if you click on view training details, click on that, let's see what that says. That might give you the information you're looking for. And show status complete. Let's click on, you've seen this, right, Carrie?
Yes, I see that.
Okay.
The list of all of the potential projects.
Yep. I'm going to
So
go through.
a nice thing to point out here is there are, like in this level 3, for example, there's maybe 10 or 15 projects, and you can see that you don't have to do them all. You get to pick and choose, which is another nice thing about Pathways.
Yep. And actually, if you look at this level 3 that I was just walking you through, the elective that I did was using presentation software, and that was one of my Pathways trainings that I did. I completed a project in Pathways when I was doing that for a district event. All right, so I'm going to click this, and I don't know if there's more information about what day I finished it. Completed. Yeah, it does. Completion date score. Does that help, Carrie? It actually does show you what date you did it.
Yeah, I think it's more for you might have to have a little more dialogue with your VPE, especially if you're a member of multiple clubs.
Yep.
Just to make sure that that person understands what you've done and that you've really completed everything.
Yep. And Vice President of Education in that Basecamp Manager module does have a lot of reporting options there. They can see what you have done in that club that Basecamp Manager is in charge of and what you haven't done. So yeah, there is definitely some dialogue you need to do if you're confused about where you're reporting your completions to, if you're in more than one club.
I also want to point out it's not very easy to mess something up in here in Pathways. So don't be afraid to click on something or look at something. You can jump around to projects. So if you jump into a project and find you're not ready to do it, that's fine. You just jump onto some other project.
Right. So I'm going to check in with Tiffany. Have we lost you as a new person?
Hey, I'm still here. Yep. No, I'm
Okay.
following along. Everything's good. I don't know if this is the right time to ask it, but I think the thing that I was having the most trouble locating in Pathways, and by the way, thank you for going through this demo because I think it's really informational and very helpful. But the one thing that I was particularly interested in was the evaluations. Like, where do I find my evaluation form and how do I send it to my evaluator? Because I've had issues with that in the past.
Okay. There's 2 different ways of doing it. When I do speeches, I think the best way for me to do it, because I'm in the project preparing my speech, and I'm just going to go ahead and do one of these that I've done already. And I'm going to launch it. I kind of showed you a hint when I went into the project that I was closing out. But as you're preparing a speech, there's a number of things that you're doing. You're going to read through the project to discover what you should focus on and to organize your speech using the content there. But there's also some links within the project that give you access to the evaluation resource. That would be my first place that I would go, just because you're actively in there anyway. And sometimes I'll print out the project checklist to make sure that I didn't forget anything when I'm preparing my speech. But the evaluation resource is in that same place.
While we're waiting for this to come up, Lisa, I also want to point out, if your club uses the toastmastersclubs.org website to do your agendas, that agenda now, when you go out to sign yourself up for a speech, you select your path and project. And then when the agenda goes out to everyone, when it gets emailed out, there's a link to the evaluation form. So you don't have to even email it to the evaluator. They can just click on it that day and get to it. So if your club isn't using that, I would definitely make that an option as something to look at, because it's very, very helpful.
That is a great tip. Is that under free host site?
I believe so.
Okay.
Our club website is just called voicesinmotion.toastmastersclubs.org, but it comes up with that generic Toastmasters logo. So
Yeah.
I think that is what probably used to be called Free Toast Host.
Yeah, that's a great tip.
And then, because sometimes people don't always show up to club meetings when they're assigned a role. So if someone else has to jump in and be your evaluator at the last minute, that's very easy for them to get it off of there as well.
Right. So I was in my project. I'm just going to click on prepare and present. Sorry, I clicked in the wrong spot. It's been a while since I did this one. Okay, so this is under your evaluation. And it's the last screen that you go through when you're doing your speeches. And it says, okay, so here's your resources for delivering your speech. There's a button there for evaluation resource, and it'll pull up your evaluation for this particular speech that you're working on right there. And if you send this electronically, the person that's doing the evaluation can fill in the fields electronically. They can save it and send it to you by email. It's a really easy way to do it. Another thing you could do, Tiffany, is in Pathways, there is speech evaluations from your Basecamp screen, and you can do a search for icebreaker, or it's in alphabetical order. You can take a look for it in alphabetical order as well. And you can find your evaluation resource there too. It's the same place that it takes you to. It asks you to launch it.
Can you download those to your computer so that you have them in advance?
You sure could. Yeah, especially the level ones, I think would be really helpful because it's the most frequently done speeches for a lot of people, the icebreaker and your presenting and evaluation forms, and that researching your speech. All of those level ones, I think would be handy to have. I think beyond that, I've actually gone on my phone before because someone asked for something last minute, and I was able to go to this evaluation button and click on the evaluation I needed. And I didn't actually type something up on my phone because that would have been awkward, but I just grabbed a piece of paper and I knew the questions from that evaluation form, and I filled out an evaluation for them that way. So there's just a ton of ways you can do it. I would say the easiest way for everyone is if you're building a speech, print or electronically deliver that evaluation form so that everybody's ready to go when you give your speech. It's kind of awkward to have the shifting around of people trying to find an evaluation while you're waiting to give your speech. So this is just a more easy way for you to be ready for your speech.
Can you, as a member, see all the evaluation forms for every path, or do you have to be a vice president of education?
You can see all evaluation forms no matter who you are. You don't have to be an officer to see them.
Hey, Lisa, we're at 10:30 now, so I know you volunteered to stay on a little bit if people have more questions, and we can certainly do that. But I want to be cognizant of everybody's time because we've got about 15 minutes. If you need to take a break, go refresh yourself, stretch. I know that we have another Toastmasters event coming up in this room, and that event is Club Growth with our Club Growth Director, Chris Sheehan. So if you're interested in that, please stick around. In about 15 minutes, he will start that. Otherwise, if you don't want to be in that session, there's 2 other sessions going on, so take a look at those. Thank you again very much for joining us, and we'll see you back here in a few minutes.
Yeah. And Carrie, I just want to mention too, I went back to what did I want to get out of the meeting, and I think I hit everything except for the what do we do as area directors to get people on, and how do I help others understand pathways. So the others pathways is again navigator. That's the way I think would be the easiest way to walk people through pathways. And as area directors, I think that would be a great thing to add to a deck meeting in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's also a great thing if you are making an area director visit, ask for a speech slot at that club so that you have 5 to 7 minutes or however long you want to do. You could do a mini demo just like Lisa did today. You could do what that club needs. Do they have mostly new members? Do they have mostly experienced members? As a area director, you are really, we always say you're the boots on the ground for our district. You're the ones who's reaching out to those clubs and seeing those clubs in action. And all of our clubs, I think with a very few exceptions, are now meeting online. So Pathways is great for clubs who are meeting online. We were talking about how to get the evaluation resource. You know, when we were meeting in person, we have a box in our room that has some printed out evaluation forms, but you can't have that anymore. You've got to go and make sure you get it on electronically if you're meeting electronically. So just some things to think about.
Yeah, and if you're someone that needs to explain pathways to other people, you can use my session as just a way to start your own kind of mini session with your club members. The biggest thing that I would suggest from doing pathways training multiple times now is make sure that you leave yourself time and ask people at the beginning of the session what they really want to hear, because you could get very caught up in the details of all of those different projects and really not help them with what they actually want to hear. So my biggest recommendation is to quiz people when you get them active in a session. What do you want to hear about today? Why did you come to my speech? So that they get what they need.
All right, I would also be remiss if I didn't say thanks so much, Lisa. This was great. I know everybody appreciated it. At one point, I saw we had up to 19 people. I think people were jumping in and out. So that's a pretty good group.
Yeah, absolutely. Tiffany? Oh, that was just applause. Thank you, guys. That was sweet. The offer still stands too. If anybody wants to go through some individual questions about pathways, I'm willing over the next hour to meet with you. I have Zoom capability. I can send you a quick link. We can chat real quick here and set up another link just for some individual walkthroughs. So just let me know. I'm here for you.